culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherlands
Motherlands
calling
calling
its
its
diaspora
diaspora
home.
home.
Join
Join
my
my voice.
voice. Join my
Join
team.
my team.
Join my
Join my
campaign.
campaign.
Campaign 21
Campaign 21
hashtag 1 million
hashtag 1 million
subscribers on the Pan
subscribers
African
on the Pan
Daily
African
TV
Daily
YouTube.
TV YouTube.
Be a
Be a
volunteer.
volunteer.
Apply now.
Apply now.
Be the new
Be the
Africa.
new Africa.
So, good evening. Welcome, dear Pan-African family. Today is another wonderful day. We are connecting the worldwide Africans and Pan-Africanists for the One Africa agenda. And yes, if you're connecting from the continent or anywhere in the diaspora, please make sure you click the link, share, invite one another, because today is the day every African has been waiting for. As we all know, the Horn of Africa has been on a heat for the past 3 weeks or more. And not only Ethiopia, which we're actually going to focus on today, but we have been seeing the uprisings in the Sudan and other parts of the continent. Always when we think that the continent is settling down to get some peace and focus on their agenda for development of itself, then we start seeing the invincible hand playing a very crucial role on this continent. And so the questions Africans worldwide are asking, when is it gonna end? What is it that we as Africans should be doing now? What should we be paying attention to? So I'm joined right there in the studio, Dominican born attorney, lawyer, mentor, everything that I mean, I don't even know how to describe his bio, but he's going to be telling us everything, who he is, how he started, and where he comes from, and why, particularly today, Ethiopia. So our topic today is victory for Ethiopia is victory for Africa. You know, we all know, and it is a fact, it is historic that Ethiopia has never, was never, and will never be colonized. So that history, we will have to maintain it with everything necessary. Yes, Africans would have to maintain that status quo that Ethiopia was never colonized and will never be colonized and should never be colonized. That is our duty for Africa and for Africans worldwide. So, what are we going to discuss today? We want to find out what is the current situation in Ethiopia. Of course, the whole week is going to be on Ethiopia. I don't really know whether the whole week, but most of the week, because even on Tuesday, we're also going to be having, Ethiopian guests on the show, because this situation, as I said again, in Ethiopia is not funny. I hope you guys are connecting. I'm just warming it before I get into the studio, because this is not my show. This is the show of our brother, Gabriel Christian, who would actually be sharing his passionate work, stories, engagement, leadership, and what he thinks we should know as Africans today regarding the situation in Ethiopia. Are we going to be disunited again? Are we going to fall into that trap of imperialism to say, yes, we're fighting against each other? When are we going to grow up to know that we're just hurting ourselves and that we're just playing on the other people's agenda? That is the questions a lot of Africans are asking worldwide. Ethiopia has never and has kept his record of, welcoming people from the history of Haile Selassie and all that. And so why today? Why Ethiopia? Only at the time when we saw this young gentleman, Prime Minister Abiy, and I visited Ethiopia since 2019 two times. I mean, just like, our guest today, we were having a short conversation. Ethiopia is that land when you get on the continent, then yes, you've met your origins, okay? From the world, from the hospitality to everything. I said it here a couple of times. I've never been to any African countries where you just get at the airport, everybody welcomes you. They want to assist you. They give you their phone. Do you want to call your contact to pick you up? Or do you want, to be accompanied to that location where you want to go to if it's your first time in Ethiopia without charging you, without asking you down? It's the second time I went to Ethiopia and never, even when I went, for sightseeing and just touring and something like that, that you could drink in Ethiopia and nobody will ask you a tip. Even when you give a tip and they say, no, thank you, you're welcome home, right? I mean, that's the Ethiopia we know. It's not just the development of the Ethiopia that is skyrocketing. You get to Ethiopia, you think, it's not on the continent of Africa from all the negative images that we've been seeing for decades today. Ethiopia is not just that one. Ethiopia is the political headquarters of Africa, the continent where the African Union is there in Addis Ababa. What is it that someone can wake up in the morning and fool you Africans and that Ethiopians have just become some kind of, I don't know, killers? They've just become some kind of monsters to fight and destroy and kill their own brothers in Tigray? No, we are saying no with every passion. Africans are saying no. It's not now and it will never, ever be again. So I hope all of you are connected, and because we're about to get into this heated conversation with brother and our elder out there, and it's one of the first time that we're having him here on the show, even though we have anticipated to have him since last year, because he's one of the biggest voice, not just a voice, but a leader, a passionate leader. All his blood and veins and everything flows, on his root. And so he's so concerned, not only in Ethiopia. I mean, I just want to tell you something so very quick before we get into this conversation tonight, because it's going to be a long conversation, 2-3 hours, I don't know. And so when I had a conversation with him today, and he asked me, oh, Dr. Tata, where do you come from? Then I said, from Southern Cameroon. He said, from Bamenda or Bafoussam. And I was like, because you know what? On Thursday, the people of Bamenda woke up to another terror. Another baby was shot, or like the sources say, caught a stray bullet because of the war going on in Amazonia, Southern Cameroon. So, our brother is not just talking on Ethiopia or comes from Dominica, or that he is overall from the biggest historian. Not only that, he's also an author. He's also a mentor to young people. I mean, I don't even know where to start, right? But we're so happy that we have one of these great voices here on the Pan-African Daily TV for the first time, but which is not also going to be the first time. We're going to have him in our repertoire of our expertise, Africans for Africans by Africans. So let us get into the conversation. I hope all of you are now comfortable. You have your water to drink before we go on this conversation. You're free to ask questions in the chat. You know how we roll on the Pan-African Daily TV. Just drop anything that you want. Probably, maybe if we take a break, we can take some few calls coming in live if you want to address your concerns out there to him. But if not, if it is just a study session, then I'll all engage you guys to just listen, learn a lot, and particularly the way forward. So good evening and welcome to the show, Brother Gabriel.
Good evening, Dr. Susan Tata. I just want to thank you and Pan-African TV for having me on, and I want to give a shout out to Brother Marshall in St. Martin, who was the connective tissue to bring us together for this evening's event. So God bless him. God bless Ethiopia. God bless Africa.
Ashe. Thank you, brother. I mean, it's so passionate. I mean, I can remember the first time I called you today, just for us to, just to know ourselves. And the first thing before you even answered call, you said, let us pray.
Yes. The struggle in which we're engaged for the liberation of and the development of Africa is not a material walk. Early on in the independence movement, people who have Marxist views on the left and so on, they missed the point. Our effort is a human effort. And to be human, one has to be deeply spiritual. And if you are not willing to sacrifice for the betterment of all humanity, of people of all colors and creeds, in the spirit of generosity and kindness, then you are not ready to lead. So the leaders we seek in Africa today, are leaders who have to be of ethical grounding. They have to be self-sacrificing. They have to be desirous of lifting up the farmers, the workers, the last, the least, and the left behind, not simply those of their ethnicity of their tribe or of their particular village, but the entire nation, including Africans abroad. I was born in the early 1960s when the winds of change were sweeping over Africa. We had Ghana in 57. You had Nigeria, I believe, in 61. On and on. And Dominica, between the French Departement, Outre-Mer, of Martinique to the south, where France Fanon came from, and Guadeloupe to the north, was a British colony. We had gotten self-government, we had gotten the vote in 1951. And by my year of birth, 1961, we had elected on Dominica Edward Oliver Leblanc, who was a phenomenal leader, honest, intelligent, and kind. And he was a Pan-Africanist. I want to share with your audience something that's amazing. About 8 years after he became prime minister, or premier, I'm sorry, we're still a colony of Britain. So we had internal government, and Britain was responsible for defense and foreign affairs, and there was a British governor. He had Dominica's government donate $50,000. We're still a colony of Britain, to the Organization of African States, or the Organization of African Unity, OAU, Liberation Committee for the Liberation of Africa. So here was Edward Oliver Leblanc, Dominica's premier, in what was still a colony, thinking about Africa and African freedom. So I was very fortunate to have been brought up under the stewardship of parents, Wendell Christian, a British Army soldier in World War I, and his wife, Alberta, my mom, who's still alive at 92, a nurse and then a teacher of the blind, in a household where the names Patrice Lumumba, not too much, but Kwame Nkrumah, certainly, Jomo Kenyatta, those names were known, and a premier who believed in African liberation. And so on Dominica, a small island, we produced some great leaders. And in this moment, I want to pay tribute to the memory of my granduncle, George James Christian, who left Dominica in 1896 to study at Gray's Inn in London to become an attorney, and in 1900 helped organize with Henry Sylvester Williams of Trinidad, who was a fellow law student, the first Pan-African conference, or Congress rather, in history, in London. And his subject was how Europe has made a battlefield of my homeland, Mother Africa. George James Christian went to Ghana, what's called the Gold Coast in those days. Ghana was not yet known, in 1902, and became a lawyer in Sekondi in the Gold Coast. He was a founder of the Gold Coast Red Cross, a founder of the Gold Coast Cocoa Association, a founder of Achimota College in Accra, and became a member of the Gold Coast legislature and died in 1940. And so we remember him and all the other Pan-Africanists who came from the Caribbean, who were descended from enslaved Africans who had been captured in Cameroon, or what is now Cameroon, what is now Nigeria, what is now Ghana, put into the hulls of the slave ships, taken across the Atlantic in terrible condition to grow sugar cane to enrich the coffers of France, Britain, all of Europe. The greatest agro-industrial revolution. Remember, Dr. Tata, before the West Indian slave trade, there was no sugar industry in history. The sugar industry originated in the Caribbean. If you wanted sugar before that, you had to get honey or some other product. So when you hear sugar, when you hear rum, that originated from the sweat, blood, and toil of Africans who'd been ripped from the bosom of Mother Africa and brought to the West Indies. And so today we are committed, those of us who are conscious, and those of us who are full of love and understanding of our history and our heritage, those of us who love our proud ancestry in freedom struggle, we are committed not only to the liberation of Africa, but to its prosperity and the prosperity of Africans and the unity of Africans in peace, love, and understanding all over the world. That's our mission, and we shall have victory in that cause.
Amazing. Of course, this is what Africans are saying. We are waking. This is our time, and this is the time for Africa. You did a very explosive video, which has gone so viral on the topic that we want to address today. Victory for Ethiopia is victory for Africa. And I've been saying through your past, I went through your biography. I mean, it's such a voluminous biography, and your contacts to Ethiopia ever since, I don't even know when. The kind of connections that you have to Ethiopia, and recently you were just in Ethiopia. So can you just tell us, why do you think the Horn of Africa needs to maintain that status quo? And we are all seeing that they want to rob off of that history that Ethiopia was never colonized. And so this might be the time.
Dr. Tata, I'm making a call to all Africans. Brothers and sisters, wherever you may be around the globe, I want you now not only to pray for Ethiopia, but to do everything, spend your money, spend your resources, unite with your friends and neighbors, spread the message to rush to the aid of Africa. Africa's beacon, Ethiopia. Ethiopia is the center of gravity of the African continent. Ethiopia is a great nation, greatest nation to have existed for 3,000 years. Through much turmoil, they were able to maintain a degree of solidity. In the Bible, it says, Ethiopia shall stretch its hand unto God. In this moment, let us remember that when most, if not all, of Africa was colonized, Ethiopia stood tall. As a matter of fact, in Western history and culture, people in the diaspora were called Ethiopians. They called black people Ethiopians, so you had Ethiopian legions. And so Ethiopia has played a pivotal role. I have one son. His name is Makonnen Christian. My wife and I, Joan, named him after Ras Makonnen. I have one daughter. She was our first child. Samora Dominique Christian. We named Samora after Samora Machel of Frelimo. As a child on Dominica, while being a British subject, in high school, we would have meetings and in the African Liberation Day marches, collect money for the MPLA in Angola, Frelimo in Mozambique, and the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau. In fact, at high school, some friends called me Guinea-Bissau because we supported Amilcar Cabral, who was then fighting a war against the Portuguese. So I'm talking 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. And so both our children are, with their names, resonant in our dedication to Africa's freedom. And of course, we know Ras Makonnen was the father of Emperor Haile Selassie, and his glory came in the defeat alongside Emperor Menelik of the Italians at the Battle of Adwa in 1896, when Italy first tried to colonize Ethiopia. And today we remember that in 1935, when Italy came back under Mussolini, Emperor Selassie called on the diaspora, and the diaspora answered in the way of John Robinson, the Brown Condor from Mississippi, who was one of the early African-American aviators, the first person of color in the United States to open an aviation academy in Chicago. And he came to Ethiopia and helped found the Ethiopian Air Force. And after the war, working with Trans World Airlines and the Emperor, helped found what is today the largest airline in Africa, one of the most dynamic in the entire world, Ethiopian Airlines. This was the diaspora mission. How many people know of John Robinson? So if you go to the Ethiopian Aviation Academy of Ethiopian Airlines, there's a statue of John Robinson, the Brown Condor. He died in Ethiopia after the war. He made the ultimate sacrifice. And so those of us who are conscious, those of us who love Africa, must understand that if Africa's beacon, that is Ethiopia, is destroyed, the headquarters of what used to be the Organization of African Unity, founded by Emperor Selassie, Jomo Kenyatta, Julius Nyerere, Kwame Nkrumah, Gamal Abdel Nasser, if that organization, which has now transformed itself into the African Union, headquartered in Addis Ababa, if we see Addis Ababa rented and torn apart and destroyed because of fratricidal warfare, tribal warfare and hatred and animosity, Africa itself will be imperiled. And I posit this evening on your program, recolonized by those who are anxious to place their control over its resources. And so we have a rendezvous with destiny this evening. We must go forth with the idea from this evening, commit ourselves to forming an African Legion for science and technology, because that is one of the things we lack. But not only science and technology, an African Legion predicated on the principles of good governance, the principles of integrity in office, principles of rule of law, so that we can have societies that are attractive to our people, so our people won't have to be running away to Europe and other places, because in our own homelands, we do not have the security and the equality of opportunity and the leadership that will be, let's say, engaging and energizing of our young people, male and female, to their better selves. We must embrace an African leadership that is visionary. Today, we focus on Ethiopia, because Ethiopia, when I flew into Bole Airport in September, how proud I was to see dozens and dozens of planes gleaming white, 777s, 737s, 767s, all kinds of planes arrayed in order for what is the largest airline owned by Black people in the world. How proud I was. Successful. All of that, my friends, brothers and sisters, will be destroyed if we cannot keep it together. So the responsibility is ours to be patient with each other, to be understanding with each other, and to put down the gun and to put down the sword and stop this tribal war that's now going on in Ethiopia. There was an election in Ethiopia. The Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed was elected. I'm sure there were imperfections. Which election in human history has ever been perfect? But the reality is, he is recognized by the African Union as the legitimate Prime Minister of Ethiopia. He is recognized by the United Nations as the legitimate Prime Minister of Ethiopia. He is recognized by my country, the United States, as the legitimate Prime Minister of Ethiopia. He is recognized by the United Kingdom, the EU, all major organizations, the World Bank, the IMF, the Pan-Africanist, as the legitimate leader. And so if there are problems with Prime Minister Ahmed, should we take a gun and shoot him? Should we hang him? Or should we use our spiritual maturity, our intellectual maturity, our sense of responsibility, and sit down and resolve whatever problem exists in a peaceable fashion? That is the call that we make. Because we say tonight, as at all times, the victory for Ethiopia is a victory for Africa. If Ethiopia is destroyed, our entire motherland is soon to fall under a new and more perverse slavery and a new dark night for people of African descent the world over. It is our duty not to let it happen.
It is the night for destiny. It is the night to decide the destiny of Africa and Africans worldwide regarding the situation in Ethiopia. And if you're joining us, we are connecting our brother Gabriel Christian all the way from the United States, but Dominica born and Pan-Africanist with all passion, as you can hear. And we're looking at the situation in Ethiopia and calling on Africans worldwide to stand up and just show their support, you know, humanitarian support, any kind of support that we can, mediation and everything, to keep these two brothers from the Tigray and Ethiopia itself from getting this kind of coalition. The biggest enemy that we have is hate. That's the enemy of hate, when we don't even recognize that we are one people, and why should we be killing each other? So that's the time, and that's the major call for today and way forward for the solutions for Africa. It is time for us to just exercise what we call Ubuntu, or our spirituality, like our elder is saying. Now, Brother Christian, you said something that it's a spiritual warfare, and it needs love, it needs passion, it needs money, it needs sacrifice, it needs everything that we can to do to put this situation. But of course, the world also knows it's not even if Ethiopia is down, it's not only the plight of the Africans as well, but even the world at large. Am I wrong on that?
Indeed. Indeed. Anthropologists and archaeologists and those who study human history have all said that the human race evolved from Africa. Interestingly, I think the anthropologists, archaeologists, Alfred Leakey, doing his research in the Rift Valley, found the remnants of some of the earliest human settlements. So not only is Ethiopia the oldest, maybe one of the oldest nations in continuous existence on Earth, many scientists will tell you that our roots as human beings, no matter what color we may be, because we know human beings left Africa and spread all over the globe, come from that area of the world. Why is that important? Well, the best thing we can do, those of us who are people of African descent who have known slavery, is to not do anything to reintroduce slavery. The best thing that we can do as people of African descent who've known the bitter sting of racism is to do everything we can to be anti-racist. So the Pan-Africanism that we espouse must not be one where we become that which we criticize, you see. It's not enough to say that the West did this and the West did that. I take a moment at this point in time to remember people like William Wilberforce, Thomas Buxton, and the white European abolitionists who were of Christian virtue and who stood for the abolition of the African slave system and the African slave trade.
Ashe.
I take a moment to remember, as a Pan-Africanist, John Brown of Harper's Ferry, a white American, who with his entire family sacrificed his entire family in the cause for the liberation of African Americans. And in 1859, my friends, John Brown, a white man, went to Harper's Ferry with a plan to free all African Americans who had been enslaved. And he fought valiantly, captured the federal arsenal, but was outnumbered by the troops, captured and tried and hung. And his death, many people in history will tell you, triggered the American Civil War, which ended with the abolition of slavery in the United States. So he died in 1859. He was hung, sacrificed himself for us, a white man. And his death, his sacrifice, led to the ascension to office of Abraham Lincoln, the greatest American president who's ever lived, who united the Union, who fought the war to end slavery, and who, at the moment of victory, on April 14th, 1865, was shot in the head and killed by a white racist. Why? Because he had fought to end slavery. And he died on April 15th, the following morning. He was shot on Good Friday, died on Holy Saturday. It's important for us to remember those persons who are white, because just like not every black person is perfect, so too not every white person is perfect. Among white people, you have the knaves and fools. We have those who are cruel, but we have those who are glorious and kind. Among Africans, you have those who are knaves and fools and dictatorial and corrupt. And we have people like Sister Susan Tata of, is it Bamenda or Bafusam?
Amanda.
Bamenda, who in her own glory has brought us here this evening. So our fight is not a racial fight. It's not predicated on racial hatred or tribalism. We are proud of our African ancestry, but we are proud of persons who have different cultural attributes, those who are Chinese or German or British, where those attributes are noble and present a degree of the ascendancy of intelligence and creativity and science and industry. We have to be able to glean from those other cultures and countries that are engaged in meaningful things and absorb that which they have done well, that which they've done that is just, and utilize those processes and systems and inventions where applicable for the benefit of Africa and the African diaspora. If the West is powerful today, it's because the West is only the West because of what it drew from the creativity of Africa, the resources it took from the human resource of Africa in the African slave trade, the science that it took from Africa. Never forget that Europe is a composite society. What I mean by that is it's a society that was created out of different strands, not just white Europeans, but those who had their antecedents, their roots in Africa. And so we have to be, in this time of Pan-Africanist thought, as we seek to consolidate the victory of the Ethiopian nation, which is the victory of the African nation, we must focus on building institutions, as the African Union, as the space agency they just started in Ethiopia, as in the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam that they've just built and is being filled. Do those things that are productive, transformative, so our boys and girls, those who are going to come behind us, can have better societies within which to live, so they don't have to board rickety ships to cross the Mediterranean, get themselves killed, fleeing our motherland. We must see people coming to our motherland, not running away from it. That is the charge that we must, in fact, embrace. That is the duty that we now must abide.
Excellent. I mean, we feel that leadership, like we were saying, a statesman and a leader, but you sound more like, I know you're an attorney, but when you were speaking, I had the impression like you've been in a military. We didn't even ask, who are you, as a matter of fact. You just go back.
Well, I said I was born in Dominica. I was a British subject. My father was in the army, and because of that, we grew up in a very military home. So I grew up, learning of Winston Churchill and Charles de Gaulle, and not so much Frantz Fanon then or Malcolm X. That came later. But, the great military leaders of the Second World War, Field Marshal Montgomery and Patton and Omar Bradley and those people, Eisenhower. That was my father's generation. So you're living in the house, so you're hearing all those things. But I came up in a time of Black power. I came up in the time of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And so being an English-speaking person in a majority Spanish-speaking area, the biggest countries in our area, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, but the English islands, there's quite a few, but they're smaller. Our polarity was the United States, because the United States has three borders: Canada, Mexico, and the Caribbean. So I was born in the Caribbean, and in 1957 to 62, there was one Caribbean. It was the British West Indian Federation. Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, Dominica, all together. Unfortunately, again, the curse of disunity, Jamaica left. The intelligent and progressive Jamaicans under Michael Manley's father, Norman Washington Manley, wanted to keep the unity going, but there's a gentleman called Alexander Bustamante who thought differently. So Jamaica became independent on its own. Trinidad left the same year, and then the smaller islands followed later. So once I went through elementary school, at high school, I was a cadet. The cadet corps is like what they call in the United States Junior Reserve Army Officer, Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps. It's a military organization in schools. So you learn to drill and read maps and hike and shoot guns. And So all of us were cadets. My brother, who was a cadet before me at the grammar school, actually came to Washington, became a general surgeon, and was a combat surgeon in the U.S. Army. He was a U.S. Army major, and he's very close to me. In fact, he's right here with me in this room, and I love him very much. Dr. Samuel Christian, Major U.S. Army, retired. So we had that military tradition. Our oldest brother, Dr. Wells Christian, was the first cadet. He later became a veterinary doctor, went to school in India and in Florida, and was the first black person in Dominica to become a veterinary surgeon. Before that, they were all white. They were all from England. In fact, there's one right before him who was an Indian. From India, being a Commonwealth country, would have exchanges with Dominica, being part of the British Commonwealth of Nations. After high school, I taught agriculture science. I had an O-level in agriculture science from Cambridge University, so I taught agriculture science at age 18 for a year, and then English literature at my high school, the Dominica Grammar School. And then in 82, my brother arranged for me to come to Washington to go to the University of the District of Columbia. Well, actually to another university, but a friend of mine who's a dentist, Dr. Emmanuel Finn, he's a famous dentist here in Washington, said, you know, it's a better deal to go to the University of the District of Columbia. The University of the District of Columbia at that time was a majority black institution. It's the city university. And at that time, the mayor was Mayor Marion Barry. He was an African-American, I believe, from Mississippi. He was on his way to a PhD in chemistry. Brilliant man. He was a civil rights hero. And he energized the African-American population and did a lot of good in Washington, because before that, Washington was a segregated city. Whites lived mostly in Northwest. Blacks lived in Southeast and Northeast. But he opened doors of opportunity in Washington for black people. He became mayor, and you had a lot of people opening businesses and owning homes. So being in Washington in the 1980s was a very dynamic time, a very proud time. And he actually gave me my degree in 1986 at the university, at the convention center. Marion Barry has since passed on, and his now widow taught me American government. And in 1987, I was admitted to the Georgetown University Law Center, and I graduated from there in 1990 with the degree of Juris Doctor, and took the bar in 91. I actually was supposed to graduate in 91. I graduated early. I graduated one semester early because I went to school at night and worked extra. And I passed the bar and became a lawyer in Maryland and federal courts. So I'm a member of the bar of the U.S. Supreme Court and U.S. Federal Courts, the Fourth Circuit, and the Court of Appeals of Maryland. And I've been practicing law since 1991. But my main passion has been first for my island, Dominica, which has been through the Dominica Association and the Dominica Academy of Arts and Sciences and Rebuild Dominica, doing development work in agriculture, development work in partnerships, development work with the hospital system and the library. And in 1992, because I'd been in the independence movement with a Pan-Africanist by the name of Roosevelt Rosie Douglas, we had been part of the Popular Independence Committee. We founded a press, Pont Casse Press, and myself and a Dominican Crown attorney in Canada, Irvin Andre, who had gone to the Hopkins University, John Hopkins University, and University of the West Indies, we did our first book, In Search of Eden, The Travails of a Caribbean Mini-State. And so we've published, Pont Casse has published about 43 books since 1991. Since 1992, I've done about 8 books, either with Mr. Andre, with my sister Esther, or on my own, and Mr. Andre's done maybe about 20 books. So our methodology has been always education, because if we're educated about our responsibilities, if we're educated in arts and sciences, if we're educated in we have ethical grounding and how we govern ourselves, and that's why I believe the cadet program is so important, that young people, when they are in high school, become Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or Girl Guides or cadets, or join the JROTC. Then you stay away from gangs. You stay away from drugs. Because if you're smoking dope, or if you are in a gang, if you're not studying your work that has to be studied to pass your exams, you're not going to amount to anything. It's as simple as that. You're going to be someone else's fool or someone else's slave, either to the dope that they're peddling or to the gangs that they're forming to use you for their own nefarious purposes. And so our life, my brother Sam, my brother Lawson, who was Duke of Edinburgh Awards came, my sister Esther, who was a youth worker, and my sister Hildred, who was a Girl Guide, which is like Girl Scout, in the British system, we, like our parents, are all civic-minded. Our parents were civil servants. Our father ended his life as a senior fire station commandant in Dominica, station officer. My mom ended her career as a civil servant, teaching the blind to make arts and crafts so that they would not have to depend on charity. So we came from a household that was schooled in the value system or the value engineering of service to community, not service to self, not greed. I mean, our mother not only was active in the Catholic Church, but she was also a Red Cross volunteer. She was maybe the first or second Black person, because a lot of the people at that time were, Dominica's a slave society, were the higher classes who were generally of what you call local whites. You know, Dominica is a New World society with people of African and European descent. And so she served in that capacity as a volunteer, taking care of people whenever there were issues of disasters. Like I remember there was an accident in 1975 where 30 people died in a crash of a truck, a bus. And they were going to an event, and she was there helping at that time. So being in a family, as I grew up, with parents who were literate in the way of world history and who were civic-minded, I think, accounts for my focus on Africa and community service. We are all given gifts, some of us more than others. But the gifts that we're given by Almighty God are not for us. They are to be shared. And that's why today we have to share what little we have with Ethiopia and Africa and call for peace. We need to be apostles of peace. The Prince of Peace came with a message for humanity. Here we are facing the vicissitudes of global warming. Do you believe we can deal with global warming if we're fighting each other? We're killing each other? We're burning down buildings? Well, if you burn a building down, what are you doing? You're creating more carbon and heat. You're adding to global warming. You're part of the problem. We need to cool things down. And so, Sister Tata, I wanted this moment to remember from our sister island of Jamaica, the late, great Robert Nesta Marley, Bob Marley. You know what he said to us? He said to us, and I quote, "How beautiful a thing it would be before God and man to see the unification of all Africans." And that's why I say to my Ethiopian brothers, I went to school with Ethiopians at the University of DC, very bright people, good looking, kind, generous. I couldn't tell an Ethiopian who was Oromo from an Ethiopian who was Afar or Amara or Tigray. As I said, we are all part of one African family, all part of one Ethiopian family. That is not to say there were not divisions before where people may have been discriminated against, that one group may not have dominated. I'm not trying to deny that may have happened. But how do we deal with historical wrongs? Look at slavery. We're enslaved by Europeans. We're supposed to be independent in Africa. And in 1994, we had a genocide in Rwanda. That was Rwandese killing the Rwandese. Almost 1 million people in less than a year. So as Pan-Africanists, we have to be honest while we look at the things that were done to us by others. We need to look at what it is we're doing to ourselves. We have to look within. We have to explore our minds and our hearts. And we have to ask ourselves, after 60 years of independence, are we pleased with the governance of African states? Are we going to point a finger at the West in perpetuity when we buy big houses and big cars and run after women and put money in Swiss banks? That is us doing that to us, in a great many instances. We have leaders today who occupy positions of authority in Africa who are not worthy of the sacrifice of our forebears who fought for our independence, who have taken the opportunity of political office to serve not the communities from which they came, but to serve themselves. And so We have to support Ethiopia, where we can demand of all of those involved in the conflict, brothers, let's get a ceasefire. Let's get an all-African People's Conference together. Let's have a huge rally for peace, love, and unity in Mescal Square. And let's use the resources that would be otherwise diverted to bomb and to burn and loot and rape and do all of those negative things. Let's put on our spiritual garments of patience, of understanding, of superior intelligence. And let us hold out our hands to each other, embrace each other, and as the Bible said, may Ethiopia reach out its hand to God.
I am speechless, and I know most of us that are watching here, you know, I mean, we've had a family conversation where we're looking for solutions, but to get, you know, this kind of powerful statement address the entire world, as a matter of fact, not just Ethiopia, to say if Ethiopia goes down, the whole world goes down. That's a fact. So yes, but we as Africans are going to suffer even more, because I think if it is only about the world, they never cared 4 decades ago and something like that. So we have to strive with everything that we have to be at peace with one another. I want to thank you so very much. I don't know how much, on the behalf of Africans worldwide and our voices that are rising up for the Africa that we want, one Africa, one Africans worldwide is our quest for motherland. So whether you were born in the Dominican Republic or you were born in Jamaica or so, we already see it is our time that we're coming together. So shouldn't we be focused on the unity of ourselves, getting to know our brothers and sisters that were torn off from us, or we instead get into this distraction? So we are thanking you for this powerful message of peace and love and unity and humanity as a whole, as a matter of fact, because it's never going to take just one person to build the world to be at peace with itself. It's going to take the whole human race. And so if you are that voice out there and passionate about this new Africa, this new world, as a matter of fact, which is going to be determined by the peace, the development of Africa. Without that, there is no world. There is no world, in fact.
You're so correct. Sister Tata, you're so correct. I just want to take a moment at this time to recognize all our heroes and sheroes in the United States and in the Caribbean who dedicated themselves to education. In the United States right now, there may be about 100, 125 historically Black colleges and universities. I'm fortunate to sit on the Board of Visitors of the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, which is a superb school of construction engineering and agricultural sciences. It also has an aviation academy. It is led by a pharmacological engineer, Dr. Anderson. The role of a Board of Visitors member is to reach out and create partnerships, to bring resources and to enterprise in a way to favor the university's development. And I'm thinking to myself, we have north of 40 countries in Africa. We have 125 historically Black colleges and universities in the United States with almost 100,000 plus students. Sister Tata, do you know what we can do with that?
Amazing.
A conference in Addis or someplace else in Africa, where we have the university presidents of the African universities, bidding the university presidents of the historically Black colleges in the United States, those in the Caribbean, those in Colombia. What if I shared with you that Colombia has the biggest Black population outside Africa behind Brazil and United States? Did you know that? Were you aware of that?
I only knew about Brazil.
Brazil is number 1. United States is number 2. Colombia, my friend. Have you ever looked at World Cup soccer? Take a look at World Cup soccer sometimes and look at the Colombian team. And you will see that most of the players on there are people of African descent in recent past. There are places in Colombia, for instance, in Choco, on the Ecuador border with Panama, where in Choco, it's 80% African descent, 80. So this is all our family. Because we've been distracted by tribalism and nepotism and misrule and dictatorship and the things we've done to ourselves, we forget about building those networks as the Korean Americans have, as the Jewish Americans have, as the Chinese Americans have. We have to have that understanding of our roots, and it must count for something beyond wearing a dashiki or wearing an afro. That's easy to put on a dashiki. It is easy to have an afro. But you must then move from what you call symbols and symbolism to substantiality. And what I mean by that is find an African university that you can help partner with an African American institution. We are now in the midst of COVID. I heard somebody arguing the other day about the U.S. Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. I said, well, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta was designed to serve the United States. Where's the African Centers for Disease Control? Where is the African Laboratory Science Network that you can go online and you can see the laboratories in Addis Ababa, in Nairobi, in Abidjan, in Accra, in Cape Town, in Dar es Salaam, in Maputo, in Luanda, in Dhaka, in Cairo. We can't say that we are independent when we have brilliant African chemists, brilliant African pharmacological engineers, brilliant African biologists, and they are scattered. We need to be able to bring them together using internet protocol in a fine web of productive endeavor, where we can have these networks to develop our own solutions. It is not enough to criticize others about the nefarious plans they may have had to extinguish African people. No, we have a duty to be disciplined and to set up our very own institutions. And that is why Ethiopia is so important. Ethiopia is important for three reasons. Not only it's the beacon of Africa in way of its pivotal place as the center of the African Union, but I want to mention three things that Emperor Selassie did. Emperor Selassie was the first African head of state to do a state visit to the Caribbean in 1966. I met and I sent you some videos of Mesfin Makonnen, the son of Captain Makonnen Berry. Mesfin and I were in Addis Ababa in September, and I gave him my tie from the Tuskegee Airmen, the African-American fighter pilots of World War II. And he said to me that Ethiopian Airlines was one of the first airlines with the 707. The Boeing 707 had just come out, but they were being flown by white pilots. So when the emperor decided to go to the Caribbean, which is where he was going, was people of African descent, Jamaica, Haiti, Barbados, Trinidad, I believe, he said he's not going to go to the Caribbean being flown by people who are not Ethiopian. So he chose his father, who had been a pilot since he was 17. Can you imagine that? He said Emperor Selassie was quite visionary, went to a high school, and he says, we're forming an airline, I need pilots. And his father was 16 and lied and said he was 17. And they took a McDonnell Douglas four-engine plane, flown by all Ethiopian crew. From Ethiopia all the way to the Caribbean. And it's on YouTube. You can go on YouTube, you can see the plane coming to land in Kingston and tens of thousands of Jamaicans waiting for him, because he wanted to make sure that African science, African competence, African skill was on display, so that wherever he flew, the people in the Caribbean could see, there's a black people flying this plane. That was his majesty. And in Jamaica, he left a gift. Still there. And in 2017, we went to Jamaica, myself and my brother from Ethiopia, Melta Hari from Hara, to make a gift of $750,000 to the Emperor Haile Selassie High School in Kingston 1 as a gift from Prince Ermi Selassie Haile Selassie. So the gift, again, Selassie, the institution of education that he left in 66, it's still there. You can go on Facebook and you can see the children in the nice uniforms at the Emperor Haile Selassie High School in the Caribbean. He's the only African leader in history to this date to have done something like that. And that is why people in the Caribbean respect the emperor, not because he was a perfect man or he was a god, but because of his wisdom. I want to share two other things that he did. Because the African diaspora rushed to the help of Ethiopia after the Italian War of 1935, the Abyssinia Baptist Church in Harlem, New York, was a big center for that. People in Jamaica, Dominica were collecting money to send to Ethiopia to help Ethiopia fight the Italians. The West Indian soldiers from the First War got together and they said to the British government, we want to go help Ethiopia. And they did. Hubert Fauntleroy Julian, the Black Eagle of Harlem, went to Ethiopia to help fight. John Robinson, as you know, the Brown Condor, went there and helped found the Ethiopian Air Force. He died in Ethiopia. And the U.S. Embassy has a memorial to him. Ethiopian Airlines has a statue to him at its academy in Addis. And Ethiopian Airlines is still flying today because Emperor Selassie was able to make that call to the diaspora, and many of them came, and some paid the ultimate sacrifice to save Ethiopia. So when that had happened, because gratitude is
This cannot happen that we don't have a volume and that we're not hearing him. It's not possible. Okay. It's very okay. It's very okay that we're gonna have him here. And I mean, this was just too much power, too much news, too much information, too much greatness coming out there from our brother Gabriel Christian about what we should be doing. Just hold on. I hope he's just been having some interruption. He's gonna get back to us. I don't want to think any other thing that should happen in this point in time. But like you heard it, he had given us 2 points and we were waiting for the third point. Now we know it. When we keep talking to our diasporans, we don't recognize, the importance of our diasporans and the contribution that they've been doing for motherland ever since. And he was just peeling out that history out there. Hold on. Hello?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear you. I can hear you and I can see you, but you do not seem to be able to hear me.
No, I don't hear you. I don't see you. Just click the link again. Just go out, click the link again, and let's see.
Okay, I'm going to do it right now.
Yes. So you just leave the stream, go out, and then click the link again and try to join. Let's see. If not, we're going to refresh it to get you in. All right, so we'll be waiting for him to join us back on the stream. Yeah, he was kicked out for obvious reason. Okay, right, he's back, he's back, he's back. He is back. He's back. Of course, he should be back.
Thank you.
It's the destiny day. Yes, go ahead.
The devil's trying to mess with us, but our God is more powerful.
Oh yes, no way. This time around,
So what I was saying is, gratitude is next to godliness, and we have to live our lives with an attitude of gratitude. So you know what Emperor Selassie did? He set up in Shashamane, Ethiopia, a land grant in honor of all the Africans who helped Ethiopia at its time of need. He wanted engineers, scientists, doctors, lawyers, builders, entrepreneurs to come. However, colonialism poisoned our minds. And so a lot of our intellectual class trained at Oxford and at Harvard and Cambridge, they were of a mind not to believe that Africa was good enough. And so the people who primarily went to Shashamane were Rastafarians from Jamaica, some from Dominica. Now that's great. But even the Rastafarians will tell you that what they wanted were really people who could build factories, operate farms, open laboratories, create institutions of higher learning. Because in his effort, Emperor Selassie was very wise. So I've talked about Ethiopian Airlines. I've talked about his visit to the Caribbean, to Jamaica and the other islands, and his donation of the high school in Kingston, Jamaica. Many people don't know about that. I've talked about his land grant to the African diaspora at Shashamane, where he wanted the intellectual class, the competent folk to come so they could pass on their knowledge to Ethiopia. But Rastafarians were primarily the ones who came. So we have to make good use of that. There's still time. But there's something he did that was remarkable, even before the OAU. Do you know what that was, Sister Sarah?
No.
Do you know what Emperor Selassie did? He did something that was spectacular, that made Ethiopians some of the best educated Africans. And that's why a lot of young Ethiopians need to know their own history. He sent up in his palace. I have not been able to find another modern leader who has done this. He set up in his palace the first Ethiopian university, the Emperor Haile Selassie University, which is now Addis Ababa University. He started it in his palace. He didn't want to wait for a building to go up. He got teachers from India and the United States and other places, and he built that university. He did something else after the war. My friend Melta Wahadi, with whom I went to Jamaica, who is a financier, his father was the governor of Harar, which is a big province in Ethiopia, where Emperor Selassie is from. And Emperor Selassie, being an educator, took the portfolio of Minister of Education of Ethiopia. How many Ethiopians know that? And he went to India, southern India, Kerala, where there's a high literacy rate, and got Indians to come to Ethiopia to teach. And he arranged for the Oklahoma State University to set up in Ethiopia, the Alimayu Agricultural College, ALIMAU. So my Ethiopian brothers and friends, my African brothers and friends, follow in the nation-building footsteps of Emperor Selassie. I had a meeting with the embassy of Algeria some time ago. The embassy of Algeria's ambassador now in Washington was the ambassador to Ethiopia for many years. And he said, Christian, I was so impressed when I went to the palace, which is now a museum, all the gifts that Emperor Selassie was given on his many trips were right there on display. He died in poverty. He never put money in Swiss banks. I can say this because I've known his grandson for 28 years this year. Humble, generous man, no lavish lifestyle. His money, I'm not saying that there may not have been corrupt people around him, but Emperor Selassie, humble, and he put his money in Ethiopia. And he died in Ethiopia. They've never been able to find one Swiss bank account with his name, because that was not what his education was, his focus. And I'm not saying this because I want it to be that he comes back. He can't, he's gone. But we have to look at not only the bad things that our leaders have done in the past, but also we have to recognize where we have done good. And he made Ethiopia a well-known nation and a proud nation. Was he a perfect man? I'm not here to talk about that, because perfection reigns only in heaven. He was a man, a mortal. And so I'm sure he had flaws. So in this moment, we have to remember what he tried to do in building institutions. And he also reached out to the African American universities. And in 1951, he was given a doctorate honoris causa by Howard University right here in Washington, D.C. So that is what he was doing, sending Ethiopians to the United States, Canada, England, so they could come back to build Ethiopia. How many of our leaders today do that? That is why he is recognized by us. That is why he's respected by us. And that is why we want Ethiopians to respect themselves and to stop the fighting. Because you cannot get foreign direct investment. Nobody is coming to invest in Ethiopia if Ethiopians are fighting each other. No tourist will come to see its great works at Lalibela and Aksum and the other places if Ethiopians are fighting each other. Folks will come where there is peace, social peace, as with all other African countries. Because Africa's century, I do believe, if we do it right, is the 21st century. And we will rise based on our sense of maturity, the importance of being able to engage in conflict resolution, absent the gun, absent the sword, absent the massacre. Conflict resolution. We need to be able to develop different institutions of African peacemaking so we can learn how to couple together our differences and how to allow people within our country, be they people from Bamenda and Bafoussam in Amazonia, to be able to get the resources in an equitable way. Because if they can get the resources in an equitable way, what is Biafra, for instance, then there will be no need for an insurgency. If they can go to a court and they can get their cases heard and they can have redress, and the judges are not going to be biased, then there'll be no need for an insurgency. If they can go to a development commission for agriculture or development commission for industry, and it does not matter if they are Bamileke or Bafa or Nufi, but that they are just Africans with competence, and they can be judged on their individual merit, not their tribal origin, then we shall be better off. That is the message when I said victory for Ethiopia in our intellectual maturation of the need for peace is victory for Africa.
Ooh, yes. I'm sitting on a hot chair right here because, I mean, this is one of the, I think in the beginning of this year, one of the greatest message that is going out there. And I see already in the chat, the excitement, and everybody's just like, this is the kind of message that we would have heard from the AU, African Union, or from the leaders of the continent. But I think exactly that's the point. It is not the work just for the leaders. It is the work for the people. So the voices must come also from the bottom top. And we are seeing this example with Gabriel Christian. I mean, not a politician or in any kind of a form trying to defend, but standing and standing on that portal to say, this is the way we should do. No African is small to lead or to take the leadership forward. So it's not an institution where an office where you have to be, this one should make this speech, because we hear it most of the time. I don't know how you look at it. Oh no, it should have been this person. It should have been this person. And I said, if the person goes there and the Constitution, I'm talking like you as a lawyer, the Constitution is like that. What changes can they make? Just getting a leader with the same institution and the Constitution is the same. Over to you. For instance,
Sister Tata.
Yes.
Almost every African constitution, I am sure that I can say this without any fear of contradiction, is a wonderful document. I am certain. It's the human beings behind it. You see, a constitution is but a piece of paper. If you don't have, the laws are there. For instance, the law says, don't steal. The old Mosaic law, the 10 Commandments, it's been there for how long? 2,000, 3,000 years, and still we don't follow the commandments. So it's as we get to a higher level of consciousness, we realize it's not enough to have law courts. It's not enough good enough to have constitutions. We need to have a new consciousness. See, we need to have a new consciousness rooted in a philosophy of gratitude, a philosophy of kindness, a philosophy of responsibility, You know, it's not enough to, as I said earlier, to criticize the West. What was our complicity in it? When the Europeans came, did they know where to go find us? No, they didn't know their hand from their elbow. But they worked with some tribal chiefs, let's be honest. And they had their quislings, their accomplices, who they gave some trinkets and some rot-gut liquor, and said, you know what, if you can get us some nice little boys like this, that's my son McConan when he was little. If you can get us some people, we will get us 100 every week, and we'll give you some gin and tonic or some cloth or something. And then they did that, and they put our people in the slave ships, and that's how I ended up in the Caribbean. That's how it happened. How many African countries take time to teach in the schools the African slave trade and how we got to be? Sister Tata, where did you go to school? You went to school in Cameroon?
Yes.
Did you go to high school in Cameroon?
Yes.
Did they tell you about the African slave trade?
Never.
Did they tell you about Marcus Garvey?
Never. We heard about European history. That was all I know. And that's what maybe the reason why I'm even here.
So when I came to college in Washington, there's an African-American scientist who worked at the Pentagon in the day, War Department, Defense Department rather, and he taught computer science at night. I'd never done computer science, so this is my first computer class, computer programming. We did COBOL and BASIC and Fortran. So he went to the board and he put 4 letters up, G-I-G-O, GIGO. G-I-G-O, GIGO, he said to the class of about 30 persons, do you know what that is? And everybody looked at each other. None of us knew what that meant. He said, GIGO stands for garbage in, garbage out. Garbage, G, in, I, G, garbage in, garbage out. Garbage in, garbage out. G-I-G-O. He says a computer is like this, because he was teaching us our first class. If you program a computer with good code, you will get good results. And if we program a computer with bad code, you will get bad results. So the moral of the story is, class, learn your code, because if you don't put good code into the program to feed it in, you'll say 2 and 2 is 9. 6 and 6 is 24. You'll get bad results. The human being is similar to the computer. We have made the computer really, interestingly, in a way, an image of ourselves. Our brain is our central processing unit, you see. So, if you are in Africa, in Cameroon, or you're in Addis Ababa, or in Dar es Salaam, or Luanda, or in Dakar, or Accra, and you don't know who Marcus Garvey was, you don't know who Malcolm X was, you don't know about the African slave trade or the American Civil War and the role of the United States colored troops who helped save the United States. The United States colored troops helped save the Union that we have today. The United States you see today was served and saved not just by Abraham Lincoln and the white troops who fought, but by the black troops, 180,000. And not only did they save the Union, but guess what? There is actually a university in Mississippi, in Missouri, that was founded by African-American troops. I will get the name of it for you shortly. And I didn't know that, and I thought I was educated until a year ago. Howard University was started, the famous Howard University was started by General Howard, a white Union general, Christian general. He lost his arm fighting slavery. And my brother went to that school. He founded that school at the end of the Civil War to educate African Americans in the arts and sciences. You see, so those are the things we have to learn, not only about black people in Africa, but what white people and others, Jews and others played, because they all played a role in our freedom. And by understanding that, it gives us a more democratic spirit, a spirit that allows us to navigate the difficulties of racial prejudice and insult and bias, to understand that every human being, be they white, black, Asian, Jewish, Arabic, has a strand of divinity. And it's up to us in our consciousness and our humanity to seek that strand of divinity so that we can build a better human condition. Because if we are perpetually upset, for instance, at what others did to us, and not appreciate our own complicity in our downfall and the things that we did not do right, we'll keep making the same mistakes over and over again. I will cut off here, sister, with this thought. In 2009, our law firm brought Philip Louis Ulrich Cross, squadron leader, 139 Jamaica Squadron, Royal Air Force, and Dudley Thompson, flight lieutenant, Bomber Command, Royal Air Force. They were two World War II veterans of the Royal Air Force, two Pan-Africanists. I told you about Cross this morning. He was from Trinidad. And Thompson was from Jamaica. Thompson went to Oxford. And in 1945, he helped organize the Pan-African Conference that was attended by Nigeria's Nnamdi Azikiwe, Kenya's Jomo Kenyatta, Malawi's
Can hear you. The sound is up. Okay. We are on the right track. So there's not going to be a good, a bad, a wrong, a right in the new Africa. It is just going to be, yes. Thank you.
Can you hear me, doctor?
Yes, I can hear you.
No, as I was going to say, I was so fortunate in 2009 before these men died. And so Thompson organized that because he was still dressed in the uniform of a flight lieutenant and he was able to get rooms and space. Cross later on became a judge in Ghana under Nkrumah. Nkrumah had become president of Ghana by that time. And when Congo was falling apart on tribal lines with Moise Tshombe and Katanga and Kasavubu and these people fighting each other, Nkrumah sent Ulrich Cross to Congo to get an assessment. He met our great legendary leader, Patrice Lumumba. But Patrice Lumumba was not prepared. He was a good man, good vision, good spirit, but he had not even gone to high school. And he had a 30 million person country to run. And you have to be prepared for leadership. So Cross came back to Ghana and said to Kwame Nkrumah, there's no hope. And he said that because Patrice Lumumba was sending cables to the Soviets to get. Sister Tata, where were the cables going to? Who was running the cable office in those days? Leopoldville, the capital of Congo.
Belgium.
The Belgians. We had this conversation this morning. The Belgians were reading every cable that Patrice Lumumba sent, and the cables that they wanted to go through went through, and the cables they did not want to go through did not go through. So you understand the importance that I place as a Pan-Africanist on study, on writing, on history, on education, on the scientific method, on institutions of science and technology. Because if we're going to build Africa, it's not enough to talk a good game. We have to do the partnerships, we have to have the symposia, we have to build the businesses, and we have to spend our money not on palaces and on ourselves and our girlfriends and our families or mistresses, but spend it on agriculture, spend it on industry, spend it on universities, spend it on partnerships, spend it on fora where we can get together and get the work done. That's what we need to do. And that is the challenge of our time. And Ethiopia has been doing this. And we want to encourage Ethiopia and all of Africa to do likewise.
Ashe, you were in Ethiopia.
What does Ashe mean? I don't know. I'm just a small guy from a small island.
If you're a Christian, it's Amen.
Amen. Yeah. Yes.
Ashe.
But what language is Ashe?
Swahili.
Outstanding. So
So
Ubuntu.
Can meet all African. Al-Kebulan. Yes. You were recently in Ethiopia, and what was actually the mission that you went there?
So the cousin of Prince Selassie is Dawit Johannes, and he introduced me to a group led by a gentleman, Tabubu, here in Maryland, who was focused on the development of a coffee industry that was controlled by Ethiopian farmers. So Ethiopia is the land of coffee in history. That's where coffee came from.
Mm.
But they have only made pennies on the dollar. Most of the money goes to the big conglomerates like Starbucks and the other coffee companies, because the money really is in the value adding and the processing. So the idea was that the Ethiopians could have a vertically integrated coffee industry. So coffee farmers in Ethiopia could benefit. Instead of getting pennies on the dollar, they could get maybe 30%, 50%. They could improve their schools. They could improve their homes. They could have better facilities, hospitals, and the like.
Mm.
And we signed an agreement with the coffee board, and we hope to see that through. And we ask other Africans in other parts of Africa that we can do the same thing with cocoa in Ghana. You know, you go to the stores, and most of the chocolate products are from Europe because they've learned the science of processing. So we have to attend to that, so we can go and go to a store in France or Germany and see chocolate from Ghana, chocolate from Cote d'Ivoire, chocolate from Nigeria, chocolate from Cameroon. That is what we need to do. And I'm actually happy to say that I not only have walked the talk, I'm a chocolatier. I made the first Dominica chocolate bar in 2008, in 2015. And I'll maybe show you a sample of it here. It's called Chocolat de la Dominique. And, you know, so you've got to not just talk the talk, you have to walk it. And we're working with Eric Reed, who's a chocolatier here in Maryland. He's maybe the most exquisite chocolate maker in the entire United States. He is of West Indian origin, but he's born in Panama. Black people from the Caribbean built the Panama Canal, including my grandfather, William Matthew Christian, and his wife is from the Dominican Republic. And by the way, I am from Dominica, the Commonwealth of Dominica, which is an English-speaking territory in the Commonwealth of Nations. And there's to the north of us is the Dominican Republic, which is Spanish-speaking. So there are two different countries in the Caribbean with the same name. I just want to let you know that, because most people sometimes confuse it. We're the smaller island, English-speaking. Dominican Republic shares the island of Hispaniola, Haiti to the west, Dominican Republic to the east. Haiti speaks French, Dominican Republic speaks Spanish. Much bigger country.
Wait. Just hold on there. Sorry for interruption. When you say that, it comes to me like Cameroon. Is it the same? French?
No, because Cameroon is contiguous. In Cameroon, it's joined. You know, Amazonia and the other parts of Cameroon, like Yaoundé and Douala, are all joined, one geographical mass of land. But Dominica is an island in the Eastern Caribbean, going down towards Venezuela.
Yes.
The Dominican Republic is in the Northern Caribbean next to Cuba, separate island. But it shares the island of Hispaniola with Haiti. So on the island of Hispaniola, two countries. Haiti to the west, which was the first Black republic in history, in the New World, at least. And, first Black republic, period. Because Ethiopia was a monarchy, and Dominican Republic to the west. To the east, Haiti to the west, Dominican Republic to the east. But most people confuse the two islands because of the names are the same. Columbus went by Dominica, and what is now Dominican Republic, on a Sunday. He was Italian. Sunday in Italian is Dominica. So he called it that name. And he went by my island in 1493 on a Sunday. And he called it the same thing. So blame Columbus. In fact,
we blame him for everything. I mean, but what was the question is, what was the original name before he even came?
Well, the Kalinago people, they named the Caribbean after them. They would be called Caribs until the 21st century. Call it Waitukubuli. Tall is the body, because Dominica is very mountainous. Very mountainous. So they called it Waitukubuli. Tall is the body. Yes, okay. That's the name that the native Dominicans, of which I have their blood in my veins. My grandmother was half native Dominican, native Caribbean. They look like the American Indians. They are like Apache or Cherokee, the American Indians. That's how they look, because they came down the isthmus and they took canoes and populated the islands. Yes. So at the Smithsonian in Washington, there's a whole exhibit on Dominica, and Columbus called them Indians, but they're not Indians. He was trying to get a route to the east. So he stumbled on what is now the Caribbean, and because he thought he had gotten it, he called them East Indians. So sometimes we use the term West Indian. There are Indians from India there now, but they came after the abolition of slavery, as well as Chinese. When Africans would not go back to the plantation, the British went to India and China. So in the Caribbean, in Dominica, not too much, but in Trinidad, Guyana, Jamaica, you have a lot of East Indians. These are people from India who were brought as indentured servants to work on the plantations after Africans said no more. So in Jamaica, Trinidad, Guyana, you've got a lot of East Indians and some Chinese. In those days, China and India were colonized by. In China, there was a Hong Kong. Hong Kong, as you know, was British until 1996 thereabouts, or 1992 thereabouts. So they took Chinese and Indians and brought them to the Caribbean, almost a modern form of slavery. They called it indentured servitude. So there was not just the African slave trade. There was also some enslavement of Chinese and Indians in the West Indies as well. Most people don't know that. So there are a lot of West Indians who have Chinese roots and East Indian roots, but the dominant in the English islands, the dominant group is for the most part, people of African descent. Although in Guyana and Trinidad, it's almost 50-50 in way of East Indians and Africans. But the Caribbean is a very mixed area of the world, very interesting area of the world, but a strong Pan-Africanist culture, very strong. Bob Marley, Marcus Garvey, and people of that kind. Yes.
Talking about Marcus Garvey, I mean, that's the saint or the origins of what you're saying. If in the curriculum on the African continent and we never heard about him and don't know about him, then we never even heard about history. Now, the question is, does he have descendants, children, any, how do we get access to, like, about Emperor Haile Selassie? We know that his grandsons are there. What about Marcus Garvey?
So Marcus Garvey lost a son during COVID, Marcus Garvey Jr. He died earlier this year, I think in January, in Florida. But his last son is a former chief surgeon at Harlem Hospital. He attended McGill University. He's a distinguished medical doctor, Dr. Julius Garvey, and he's alive. And I'm in touch with him. I went to Ethiopia with his blessings, with a letter of commendation. And he's been working on a bust project to put a bust of his father at the African Union. It was all in place, but with what's happening now, that might be a difficulty, but we're hopeful that will happen. And so I'd be happy to talk with him and get him on your program.
Hi, are we going to have that? You say we can have him on the program?
Well, I would have to talk with him, but I'm sure he'd be happy to do that.
Wow. Dr. Julius Garvey.
Yes, Dr. Julius Garvey. I want to say that in the Caribbean, because we've had a lot of Pan-African leaders, we do a better job in education, to be frank with you. So I knew, even when I was in high school, we knew about Kwame Nkrumah and Julius Nyerere. The governments were more progressive, and even if it was not in the curriculum, you had a Black Power movement in the Caribbean that people of my generation, you'd get Ebony magazine from the United States, Jet magazine from the United States, and all those things were in those magazines. So even if you didn't get it in school, through the Cambridge University syndicate that did the exams for O-level and A-level, you had the library and you had the bookstores that had allowed you access to that knowledge. And we now have the internet, so we have no excuse, because the internet, if we are serious, we can use it for serious science and technology and art and art education. We can use it as a platform for our eyes. We don't have to be using the internet simply to pass jokes around and memes and foolishness. We need to be serious and stop being sometimes stupid in our use of technologies. Focus. We need to focus. We need to have a military discipline. I need to be blunt. If we don't have a military discipline, we will not be able to attain the strategic objectives we seek. We can't just, show up and not be learned. We have to be learned in what we do. We have to be focused in what we do. You're going to be a pilot. I flew Ethiopian Airlines, and I was so proud. When the plane was taking off, I didn't know it. When the plane was landing, I didn't know it. It was so flawless, so smooth. The quality of stewardship on the hosting on the plane, outstanding. The food, outstanding. I was bursting with pride, and I said to myself, if we can get this thing to settle down in Ethiopia, we want to get Ethiopian Airlines all over the world. Get them to fly to the Caribbean. Have them be that connective tissue to link the African diaspora with Mother Africa. That's what we want. And that's why I say, in real terms, a victory for Ethiopia is a victory for Africa, because Ethiopian Airlines now is all over Africa. It has about 10 other African airlines that it either supports or is a partner in or shareholder in. All of those things will be negatively affected, indeed destroyed, if we don't mind the manner in which we approach problem solving in a calm, generous, intelligent way. As I said to someone this morning, every bomb that's dropped costs thousands of dollars. Do you know how many mouths that could feed? Every plane that shut down, millions of dollars. Do you know how many classrooms and university centers that could build? Every tank that's blown up, tens of thousands of dollars. How many farms could be built? How many workshops to teach vocational education in metalworking, in carpentry, in masonry, in electrical engineering, in plumbing? So the young people in Ethiopia and Kenya could have opportunity. So we have to do the best we can. Are you with me?
Yes, we're listening.
Yeah, somebody called and knocked me off, so I can't see you. I'm trying to see if I can.
It's okay. We don't want to miss a word, not just a word even. Yes, of course. I don't know how we can be grateful to have you on the show. And will it be possible to have you in our expertise pool? Like we can have you once in a month?
Well, I'm just a small town lawyer, but whatever I can do, I'd consider it a high honor and privilege to be able to be of assistance to the coming together of all people, so we can do things that are, as my father liked to say, meaningful and can help move the agenda forward for Africa and the African diaspora. That's our mission, and it's my hope that we can work together in that regard. And I just want to always remember our brother Marshall, who introduced us together, brothers together, introduced us by way of WhatsApp. I want to thank him.
Yes, actually, shout out to Marshall Lawrence. He's watching us right now and he's giving thumb ups. Brother Lawrence is also in the Dominica and has been doing everything ever since last year for us to get Brother Gabriel here. And he was always saying, please, you need to listen to him. I mean, he's that firebrand like any other elder or brother that would spark up and has a very, very huge influence on the continent and in the diaspora. And we already felt it today and we saw it today. But one last thing before you leave, I mean, you call Bamenda, you call Bafoussam, you call some tribes, I mean, in Cameroon, particularly Bamenda, where I was born, as if you've been there. I mean, what are the connections? Of course, I know that Antigua, Barbuda, that they are from Southern Cameroons, but what is your relationship there? I mean, I'm really anxious because, right now, again, like I said, the people of Bamenda just got up 2 days ago. With this horror again. I'm just tired of even announcing it. Another 7 years was cut down by a stray bullet because of the conflict in this region. And it's exactly the same thing that would happen in Uganda, that is happening in Sudan, and everywhere on the continent. I mean, children just die because of stray bullets, because of the conflicts. And so it was very important when you said we should drop down the guns. So
yes, it's very important. So I'm for a peace conference for Amazonia. I'm very close to the folks. I sent you a picture with the bag given me by the former Chief Justice of Southern Cameroon, who came to retain us almost 10 years ago, more than that, maybe 15 years ago. and I still have the bag in my office. I sent you the picture. What can I say? We have a close relationship with the Cameroonian community, both Bamileke, French-speaking, and English-speaking. But when I came to the United States, my brother was a medical student 1 year or 2 years from graduating, and his best friend was Ndimbe. Was it? Kimka Ndimbe. And I don't know where he is now, but he was a medical student he was the first Cameroonian I met. And before, he's a pathologist now, I was told. My brother, Dr. Christian, is here. And I later on represented the Cameroon American Nurses Association, led by people like Christian Happy and Agnes Kaji. They are French-speaking. But one of my good clients is Moses Modo, who's a person from Southern Cameroon and is involved in the movement for the autonomy of that region. And I am hoping that we can find a creative way to bring all Cameroonians together and the long suffering where we've had very little political change at the top. But I want to say this about politics. Politics is not to be trifled with. If you're going into political office, you need to do it for the best reasons, from the heart. And I'm not a politician, never will be. I could not be, because I can't stand to talk nonsense to people. I can only be truthful. And sometimes politics, people take license because they feel if they don't take license, they may not win a campaign. So they have to, let's say, play with the truth. And so what we need to understand is that as people of African descent, Cameroonians, who are very close to me, they're my clients, they're my friends, we lecture at the Cameroon American Nurses Association, which is a nonprofit organization, and the Nufi Women's Association, talk about women's rights and civil rights and legal matters. And so we are very close to Cameroon. And my father, before he passed in 2011, his nurse was Agnes Kaji, a Cameroonian, and she's also a client. And so we've worked with Cameroonians, we've employed Cameroonians, and so Cameroon is part of us. And I'm sure we have some Cameroonian blood in us as well.
I wanted to say that. Exactly, that was the point that I was going to like. It couldn't just be like
because people in from the Caribbean came from that area of the world, so I'm sure we have some Cameroonian blood in us. But this has been a wonderful opportunity to speak about the concerns we have about Ethiopia, to ask people to be part of the solution. When you have people talking tribalist talk, educate them. Let them know what happened in the Congo in 1961-62, when you had Katanga and you had mercenaries in the country killing Congolese. Let them know what happened in Nigeria, how Nigeria went through a terrible war, the civil war in Biafra, where Nigerians were killing Nigerians. Even today, you have the Boko Haram, which has a degree of ethnic prejudice attached to it and religiosity of the worst kind, the one that takes the sword and not the book. Because I think religion is a free choice. If one has to be Christian or Muslim, it should be a free choice that one makes. We shouldn't be put to the sword if we don't want to accept a particular religion or particular political ideology. And so I think this is a great opportunity to put the call out for Ethiopia, make sure that Ethiopians and Africans understand we need to rally around Ethiopia, defend its independence and territorial integrity, ask people who have a tribal agenda, who may be speaking, to sit down at the table. And that means the government as well, because we don't want people to feel that it's not their country. Everybody needs to feel part of a country that they're part of. Absolutely. In a way that they have respect. And we want respect for all Ethiopians, no matter what group they come from. That's what we seek. Respect, love, understanding, reconciliation. Those are the value systems and the points we have to keep focus on. And a lot of people are very angry. A lot of people from Tigray are very angry. And the guy said to me in a note, "Oh, I'm just a puppet," and so on, and I don't know the truth. And I said, "Listen, what are you suggesting? Assume I don't know the truth and I'm a puppet of whomsoever. What is your solution? More fighting? More bombing? More killing?" Well, if that's your solution, we've had already too much of it. I saw a little child, a little girl in Tigray, and she had flies in her eyes and flies in her mouth. And Those are terrible images. We can do better.
That's so true. That's so true. I understand. We don't need it. We just don't need it at all. Africa doesn't need it, and Africa deserves much better. And at any time, at some point in time, we have to move ahead. We have to move ahead.
Sister, let me give a shout out to a brother who's a leading criminologist, a doctor of criminal studies at Buffalo State University and University of Chicago, Dr. Senjai from Dominica. I was driving once and we were having a talk, and he said to me, Gabe, you know, if the only tool you have in your toolbox is a hammer, very soon every problem you face will look like a nail. Let me repeat what he said. He says, if the only tool you have in your toolbox is a hammer, pretty soon every problem that you face will begin to look like a nail. And what he was saying was, we need to take different tools. We've been using the sword and the gun for a long time. We need to take different tools to the task at hand of nation building. That's what we need to do. And certainly, if we keep thinking within that narrow frame of mind that every problem requires a military solution, an insurgency, a war, a tribal war, then we're finished. We're finished. We need to evolve. We need to understand. I think Churchill said it's better to jaw than war. So let's sit down and jaw and find solutions that can meet the needs of our time and allow for us to put our resources into more meaningful things in the arts and sciences and quality of life, foreign and direct investment, creativity in the performing arts and in the other kinds of arts and other kinds of science and technology projects. And that way we can be more fulfilled and we can live a better world for the young ones coming behind. That is our mission, that I do believe.
That is our mission, and we do all believe in it. Thank you so very much, Brother Gabriel. Christian, one last question. Do you believe in coincidence?
No, I'm too old now. So I was born in 1961. Remember I told you about my granduncle, George James Christian?
Yes.
He was a Pan-Africanist. He was an attorney. He was an organizer of the first Pan-African Congress in London in 1900. Well, I don't know why my father gave me the name Gabriel Joshua Christian, but it's the same initials. I've turned out to be an attorney. I've turned out to be a Pan-Africanist. Let's see about the next Pan-African Congress. Let's see whether we can keep that momentum. All jokes aside, I don't think there's any coincidence. I think we're all connected. And if we deepen our spirituality, we'll find that positive energy that we put out there in the world will come back to us with better and better reward. And if we put out likewise negative energy, we will go down and down, descend that slope to savagery, bestiality, barbarism. So let's raise our vibration. You know, Bob Marley said something that I want to recall in this moment. Bob Marley said, Rastaman vibration, yeah, positive. So let's always remember Bob Marley, because he was a masterpiece of human creativity and blessedness, and he believed in positive energy.
Yes.
With that positive energy, I believe we connect. I don't think it's an accident that Brother Marshall led me to you and that I met Prince Haile Selassie in 1993. I named my son after his great-grandfather. And no, those things are not coincidental. And that I went to Ethiopia this year after so many years of planning this year. I think there's a greater master potter that shapes our ends. And we just have to open ourselves to that spiritual oneness, that humanity, that love. And in that spirit, as with Dr. King, we shall overcome.
Thank you so very much. In that spirit, we shall overcome. It has been a wonderful pleasure to have you here on the Pan-African Daily. And I'm so happy that, you know, we are all here to serve. And like you said, there's no coincidence that these things are happening, that the Africans are awakening now, that we are connecting, and that is the right time for us to take a rightful place and make Africa much better, move it forward, make it greater, than it deserves to be. So thank you so very much. A last word before we separate from you.
Well, I just want to thank Dr. Susan, Dr. Nitata. I want to thank Mr. Marshall. I want to thank our Ethiopian brothers and sisters who are trying their best to hold their country together. And I ask all Ethiopians from Tigray and all the places, Oromo, let's, Brother says, one love, one heart, let's get together. And feel all right.
All right.
So I'm not a singer, but that's my message. Let's get together and feel all right and do what's right for Africa and our diaspora. One love.
One love. Thank you. One love. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I mean, it is one love. It is the season to be jolly. It is instead of Joe, oh, war, let us joy. I think that message was powerful, and it is the time for us to come together, unite, and move ahead, and move our continent, move our people. I am going to do a rebroadcast of this. I think Patrick just sent me a text there. We're going to rebroadcast this very conversation tomorrow in the afternoon, because a lot of people on the continent would really, particularly Ethiopians, and the time difference is actually, not in the same times now like us. They're mostly at midnight out there. So we will have to do a rebroadcast of this spatial conversation, an empowerment session that we've had this evening, something extraordinary, and giving us another perspective how we supposed to, blend the energies of positivity, and that it's not just about people to people or color to color, but it's more about how much we are coming together to move our people and our continent forward. So I want to thank all of you that sign in. So many have been watching, so many are still watching right now. It's a very good sign and a very positive sign that we're in, particularly when the year is coming to an end. We're already almost in the mid of November, and you can always look at the time, like King Maponga told us. Make sure you know your calendar. At what point are we in now, and why did they actually choose to say it's the end of the year? What kind of energy is rotating around us now? You see a lot of people, they're down, they're sick, they're up, but it's the end of the year. What does it mean? Actually, when I talked to King Maponga, he actually reiterated it, and a lot would die in us by the end of the year. A lot is dying into us, and for me, I just think, yes, what should die in us is the disunity. And that's what I'm passing also, this positive vibration, Rastaman vibration, positive vibration. What should die in any of us as we're approaching the end of the year is the negativity, is the disconnect. And what should, be born or rebirth in us is the awakening and the thirst to be united at every point necessary, at every instrument, anything that we will have to use to unite ourselves and to care for one another. That's what we're wishing ourselves. So let the negativity and the wars on the continent and the killings and the blood just die down this year. And we want to get into a really serious meditation. And this is not something that we only can do collectively. We've been doing it anyway. That's the reason why we're even up on this journey. But I still challenge us to do much better. Let's really go to the deepest, let's challenge our consciences. As he's saying, we need to be so conscious. If you're just here, what is it that will take your consciousness to go more higher? So you realize the more you leave behind, the more you rise. There is no two ways in it. You can be on the same. So Ethiopia, Southern Cameroon, Uganda, Mali, Sudan, where we can be on a tit for tat. Some negative energy has to come down so that the positive energy rise up. At every means necessary, we say we want freedom. And so at every means necessary, we can also drop down the guns. At every means necessary, we can look for the positive way. Every means necessary wasn't meaning that at every means necessary, we should kill ourselves. Where's the freedom? No, at every means necessary means we should be alive. we should care for one another and leave also our age without saying, I die for a gun. No, it wasn't about that. It was the love that came before the gun. So we thank you so much. And like I said, we're going to restream this again. Yes, I hear you. I know you're saying this is the best, one of the best conversations that we've had here. And truly, I do agree. And Marsha Lawrence is calling in right now, the person that made this connection. Yes, Lawrence, you're calling in.
Hello.
Thank you.
Good evening to you and good evening to Gabriel.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, man. This been so much. Very important indeed. Wow. I know you're about to close. I wonder if Brother Gabriel can give us 1 minute on the democracy, the democratic, in this 1 minute or 2 minutes. If that would be fine. Like the democratic system, the democracy, the importance of it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, just that I'm asking.
Thank you. He's already gone. He's not here. He had to be in another meeting, but he's gonna be with us, like he said. He's gonna schedule to be with us once every month, and so we can. But I can share that question with him. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Oh well. Okay. Well, okay. That's fine then.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
But shout out to you. Thank you for making the connection. Thank you for bringing us together. Yeah. All right. So we are going to end up this conversation. And like I said, even if you watch this conversation tonight, make sure you tune in again tomorrow. We're going to restream it, rebroadcast it. So it's not going to be a live, but it's just going to be exactly what we've done today. And next week, we're still going to continue on the conversations in Ethiopia. And on Tuesday, we have 2 young people, one from Ghana and one Ethiopian princess, who is also a Pan-African researcher and an activist, and is running a YouTube channel called Connect Africa. So our sister Maled from Ethiopia is going to be joining us on Tuesday. And she's coming on board with, Kwame Gonza, who is also putting out the voice out there to say all of us have to stand up for Ethiopia. All the young people have to stand up for Ethiopia and make sure that Ethiopia gets the peace that they need. And in every means necessary, the whole continent must rise up. And because it's the youth time, it's the youth movement, why not? Why should we sit and only say the leaders of the AU are not talking? What about us? So we are giving all the support out there to Ethiopia. So on Tuesday, again, we're going to stay on this. Victory for Ethiopia is the victory for Africa. But we're also saying is the victory for the whole world, right? So be in touch with us again on Tuesday on the same topic. On Monday, we might rebroadcast the news that is going on the continent, but we're still trying to put some stuff together. And so it's not going to be a guest show. It's just going to be on the happenings that have been, occurring on the continents and its diaspora. So I'm picking up this call. Hello.
Hello. How's it going, everybody down there?
Fine. Thank you so much.
You're talking about Ethiopia, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Africans are a disgrace.
Hello.
Hello. We saw how Gaddafi was executed. Africans, what makes us happy is when we see our brothers die, isn't it? Hello.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Hello?
We are listening.
What the story, the world here? I'm in Ireland. I'm in Asia. But the stories that comes on the news everywhere around the world is how Africans are executing themselves in Nigeria, how the most peaceful, loving nation like Ethiopia. Every African loves Ethiopia. That's how gifted Ethiopia has. Because of Haile Selassie, because of struggle, because of Ethiopia represents the independence of Africa. They are the only African nation that were never conquered.
Absolutely.
Now the whole African youth is looking at them fighting themselves, and all we can do is watch it on the news. It's a disgrace. White people would have woken up. If this was happening in Kosovo, white people would have woken up. If this was happening in Bosnia, white people would have woken up. Look at Ukraine, white people wake up. But we Africans are only happy with Nigerian movies and artists and singing. Bobby White, where are you? This is the time you rise up and say, youth of Africa, let us go to Ethiopia and make peace.
Correct.
And go and make one of those stupid music there and peace come like Bob Marley did. You know,
Correct.
in Uganda, Africans. Look, Malema, this is the time you go up there, you stand on the. That's why I love Rollins. Godfather, may you rest in peace. Rollins will have landed in Ethiopia with his boys and give order, not even command, give order and say, look, drop your weapons, let's sit down and talk, no more killing. And then they obey. But we now have African leaders that are just puppets. They collect loans from Europe and they sit down and watch Africans massacring each other. It's a disgrace. Everybody should be blamed for this. The children, the youth, our mothers that are looking at our children killing each other. You've all lost. There is no winner here, Africans.
True.
The bureaucrats, the unemployed, we in the diaspora. Look, I'm starting a campaign. Yeah, I'm going to start. I have fought for the independence of Britain. I am going to fight for the independence of Zimbabwe.
Ashe.
It's time to let Zimbabwe go. The Mugabe that you hated is gone. It's time to let Zimbabwe go. Let these people fight the economy. Let every African rise up and save Zimbabwe. Let we rise up and save Ethiopia. Let's stop talking. Let me tell you this. Rollins used to beat up his vice president. That's the kind of motherfucker he was. Don't talk about him and his speech if you can't do that. Rollins used to go to parliament, yeah? And maybe one of his ministers has pregnant a girl in a university. Oh shit. Move on, dog. He'll beat you up in front of everybody, even of your wife. He'll slap you. Are you mad? Me, a president, you were pregnant again. That's the kind of Pan-African we had. I'm in Goma, you slap soldiers. They go to Congo and they come back and say, no, Americans are taking over. He said, what? He slapped them. Are you telling me Lumumba is there? He slapped the soldiers. But we now have African leaders that just, I am Buhari, so what? Kill your own people. I am Nanado, so what? I'll fly my private jet. I am Maposa, so what? South Africa, you can loot your shops. The Congos, God bless Rwanda. You are really disgracing the rest of Africa. You know what Rwanda is doing? Is actually disgracing the rest of Africa. Rwanda have no money, but they are building paradise. And Nigerians have money and they are buying champagnes. And we Africans prefer Nigerians, That's the kind of brains you have. Look at everything you desire. You Africans from now on, look at the things you desire and compare it to the rest of the world. The average African desire use clothes from abroad. The average Chinese want to make something his brother has not made before. And they are fighting war over that. Chinese don't fight a war over Ethiopia. They fight war over who's going to make the next iPhone that's better than iPhone. Brothers and sisters, I've said it and I'm saying it now. If we don't rise up, I'm telling you, our enemies, the white man is sending to us, they are coming now. They've come before. It's not black, it's not white. What Kwame Nkrumah did, yes, he did explain to you about neo-colonialism. But one thing he didn't explain to you well, as a Pan-African, I will explain to you today. You see your enemies, now. Every Pan-African is aware of it, but they're not talking about it. But I'm telling you now, you see those children that cross that Mediterranean, they are now in Europe, in the hands of white men. What do you think they are teaching them now? They're going to teach these children that you Africans are scavengers. You have all the wealth, and they will show you all of them in your European banks. You see all the money you banked in Europe, these children are going to start war with you and take those money and build Africa, and they're going to disgrace you as slaves because you people are scavengers. You are sitting down and watching Ethiopia burn. The home of Lazarus is burned. And another is sitting down drinking champagne with his girlfriend in the plane. Ethiopia is burning. There's no jobs in South Africa. And what Africans make Malema great is when he comes out and makes speech. Malema,
thank you.
If I am a South African, Malema, I will put every swamp of South Africa, giving their children into labor until they build themselves skyscrapers. Talking is cheap. Kwame Nkrumah never only talk, he built dams. So don't talk about him as if you are representing him if you can't build your own dams. The Africans, listen to me, you are living in the greatest nation in Africa, and you chose to live in swamps and drive BMWs and listen to fake pastors. That's your legacy. Father God, help Africa. That's the only thing I can finish here, brothers and sisters. Only God can come and help Africa. If there is a heaven, let me hear Africa, because so far we are sleeping. And we are behaving like hyenas on our continent. We're not lions, we are hyenas. Ethiopia, the lion nation, is burning. That means hyenas are coming to take over. If we don't rise and take over Ethiopia, that means hyenas are going to take over it. We know who these hyenas are? These are the globalists. No, they come with their laws in the name of the United Nations. When you see a UN helmet on your land, consider that land gone. Example of that is Liberia, Sierra Leone, Congo. You see their life? That's the aftermath of the United Nations claiming I'm here to help. They fuck you up. That's what we are waiting. Americans are going to Ethiopia, this British will land, all those Mediterranean Sea, they will land, but the truth is, this is the time to touch it and claim it back, to claim that the black man has never done anything for themselves. And it's true, your guns you used to fight white man was made to fight the white man himself.
Okay. All right.
Uniforms was made by the white man. Idi Amin's map, everything, including his shoelace, was made by the white man.
Thank you so much, bro.
Let's rise and
Yes.
save Ethiopia now.
Thank you.
Liberation now, Ethiopians. It's time to put your guns down now.
Yes.
Build Africa in the
Yes.
name of Isaiah. God bless Africa.
Thank you.
God bless you, Susanna.
Thank you so
for your
much.
time, yeah?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you
very
too.
much. Thank you, Pan-Africans.
Yes.
Thank you, comrades. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. That was hard, but truth. Yes. I mean, at some point in time, we have to stop always, like Brother Gabriel say, the blame game, and look into ourselves and say, no, no, no. We're not going to be sitting every time and crying. We have to wake up. We have to work. We have to develop our continent. So thank that brother for that, that push again and that wake up. Yes. So we are leaving you, and we see ourselves tomorrow by the rebroadcast. And on Monday, you get our press release. Keep in touch and stay safe. Yeah. Good night to all of you. Bye-bye. All right. I think Iya is right here. Good night again. Bye-bye.
You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 # 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.